So we are a membership, co-work space, and incubator, and we represent the convergence of tech and entertainment people, all working in here, and then our first class in the incubator will start in about a month or so, and then we invest in startup companies, class of 5, tech companies with an entertainment angle. We mentor them for 3 months, and then we have a demo day, and then we present them to, they present their ideas to high net worth individuals, VCs, and then we create bidding wars and fund all the companies just like that. It's really quite easy. And then the co-work space is sort of an accelerator in its own right, but without equity and without investment, because everybody in here is sort of each other's mentors. And that's the nice thing about how that works, and we kind of mentor everybody in here, and some are trying to get into the incubator, and some are just working in here on their own projects, from startup companies that are looking to get in the incubator, or fully funded startup companies, or writers or directors, all kind of working in proximity to each other, and are kind of representing solutions for each other at the same time. So that's IOLA. Now we're very excited to have this wonderful panel. And this fantastic moderator who we know very well because she's a member here. What do you know? And this guy over here on the end, Justin, is also a member here. What do you know? So without further ado, Amanda Coulon, one of my favorite moderators and people, who happens to be single.
I hope you choked on that. Anyway. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Amanda Coulon. I'm the COO of TechZulu.com, and we cover early stage technology companies and try and tell the story about the people behind the companies and what it really takes to start a company. So that's my focus. And we have a wonderful panel here this evening that's going to talk to you about crowdfunding. So how many people in here are familiar with the term crowdfunding? Raise your hand if you know. Okay, and if you're willing to admit you don't know, raise your hand. Okay, some smart folks in here, I like this, cool. All right, so we're gonna talk about Kickstarter specifically as a crowdfunding platform, because each of the guys that you see here have had or are about to finish successful Kickstarter programs, some of the best programs in LA, over $1 million between them together. So, without further ado, I'll start going down the line. We're beginning with Joe Rubenstein, co-founder of Digital Bolex. So, if you're familiar with Bolex cameras, first digital cinema camera, and it's actually so, but about 100 cameras. Yeah. Okay, we'll get into that. And then next to him, we have Zach Keller. Who created Dick Figures the Movie, which was the highest rated and viewed animated show on YouTube, and the highest funded animation ever on Kickstarter. Targeting children, by the way, so a little bit of a tough name to talk about. Next to him, we have Nathan Wills. He's an industrial designer and a cyclist, and he invented the Torch bike helmet that has integrated lights, so he's saving people's noggins with his helmets. And so it was a hardware project, so we've got a mix here of some creative projects in more of the film and entertainment world, and then more hardware projects here, which is a good mix. And then next to him, we have Dotan Sagi, who's a UX guy and an inventor as well, and he created the Smarter Stand for iPad. And that campaign is almost finished, but he has already achieved his goals tenfold with that campaign, so we'll get into that as well. And then finally, last but certainly not least, fellow IOLA member, Justin Massian, and he's the CEO and CC of Jam Studios, and he worked on Space Command, a feature film franchise, and it successfully raised its funding goal of $75,000 in just over 3 days. Count them, 3 days, and completed the campaign with a total of $221,268 by its end date. So, you want to get a film, and his latest project launched yesterday, so you'll want to ask him about that. So, without further ado, let's get into Kickstarter. Let's get into some of the things people don't necessarily tell you. First off, let's look at some numbers. In its third year alone, Kickstarter helped raise a total of $119.6 million for successfully funded projects that closed. That's just the successfully funded projects that closed. But when you think about the other side of it, only about 44% of Kickstarter projects are successfully funded. So we're looking at, the last number I saw was 44%, that might have changed. But yeah, roughly 44%, a little less than half. And crowdfunding as a market has exploded thanks to the passing of the Jobs Act and also the publicity that you see a lot of campaigns like theirs get. So you can blame all of these guys for how hard it is for all of you to do Kickstarter projects now, all right? So anyway, thinking about just how crowded the market is, let's start off with talking a little bit about how do you formulate your initial goals? You know, how do you determine how much money you need to raise? You know, and what metrics are you looking at in terms of how much people should be pledging and all of that to reach those initial goals? Who wants to jump into this? Go on.
I'll start on the hardware side. I mean, for me, building a physical product, it's pretty mathematical. My manufacturer says your minimum order has to be at least 1,000 helmets, and they give me a price for 1,000 helmets.
Can you guys hear back there, by the way?
No? Okay.
Back of the room, boys.
So they explained to me that, you know, the manufacturer has a minimum order quantity, is what it's called, and for my manufacturer, it's 1,000 helmets for my bicycle helmet. Plus the cost of tooling, plus the cost of this, and that. So, you know, you work closely with your manufacturer, with your distributors, with anybody that's doing your packaging, anybody that has any hands-on, you know, that touches your product, get quotes from them. And you essentially add it all up, and what's it going to cost to make that first 1,000? And that was what we set our goal at for Kickstarter. We exceeded it, so now we've been able to bump up that order, which has actually brought down our cost. But we also, in the meantime, changed a few things which brought up our costs. We ended up even, but for us, that's how we calculated it for Torch, was it was just adding up cost, and we went for bottom number.
Now, Zach, you've done stuff that's more digital focused, so how is it different for you?
Well, I know one thing to be aware of is that when you do Kickstarter, 3% goes to Kickstarter, I believe, and then another 3% roughly to Amazon, so it's between 5 to 7. You lose right away. You have a failure rate on credit cards as well for people trying to put stuff in,
Tell me what
overexceeding.
happened with you.
So our show's called Dick Figures. It sounds really bad. It's actually worse than it sounds. It's about stick figures or jerks, or dicks. It's an animated show for kids-ish. A lot of kids don't have credit cards, thankfully, but we got kids donating $10,000 to this project. Hoping that if you're cops. So, no, and those ended up failing. So we actually lost $30,000. We lost almost 10%. So we raised 300. Yeah, no one knows that now, so I should have said that, but it's okay. Mixed points. There is a big failure rate. So usually about 10% goes to Kickstarter, and then another 20 to 25% of ours was for prizes. Most of our stuff was digital because we had a server, and that was downloading the movie, downloading soundtracks, downloading episodes. Then we're also doing T-shirts, and we're doing DVDs and all kinds of other physical things. And we knew that was going to take about a third of the budget because we really wanted to offer great things to the fans. And obviously, the budget for the movie was like a standard movie budget, so that was pretty easy to plan out.
Justin?
Yeah, for us, we calculated it out at up to 10% was how much between Kickstarter and Amazon we're going to take. And then we figured our rewards, we tried to make it so that when we planned our rewards, it was about 20% or less. So that means 30% of the funding goes in the bank, or part of it goes to Kickstarter, the rest of it goes in the bank for after the project is done, for shipping costs, manufacturing costs. But in our case, we knew that it was $50,000 is what we needed to make a movie, especially because we have so many people coming on for free. And we put our goal at $75K to cover the difference in the rewards and whatnot. So make sure that you are ready to put money in the bank. Make sure that that you add in extra funds above what you need in order for manufacturing and shipping costs and all that stuff.
And what about, we're talking goals here. Is Kickstarter just a place to raise money? we talked about that a little bit. Okay.
No, I mean, that's kind of what I expected going in, but as soon as the project went live, really start getting a ton of feedback that you don't really, I mean, in my case, I didn't expect I would get. So people started saying, it's great, great idea, but have you thought about doing it this way or using this material? There's this other project that's been using, polyurethane for their, non-slip pad. Do you think you should use that instead of rubber or whatever? And you start getting all this feedback when you're in your R&D phase, and it really adds a lot of value. And so anyway, that's
So market research, early adopters,
Right.
perhaps.
And one thing for us specifically, because we're a movie entity as well, is that it is also marketing, because we do get a lot of people who are pre-ordering the movie, but then people just discover it through Kickstarter. And we thankfully had a separate YouTube show. We were able to see that whenever our Kickstarter happened, all of our views on our video went up about 10 to 20%. So new people are coming from Kickstarter alone. So it's an amazing marketing tool as well.
Okay. Let's talk.
Talent too.
What?
Talent. A lot of people donate their time or offer their time or their skills that want to become involved. Some people want money, some people don't. And people who don't, yeah.
We talked a little bit briefly about just rewards and how much rewards are going to cost. How many rewards do you offer? What types of rewards do you offer? How do you gauge that? Well, where do you start with that? Is there a sweet spot?
I think that's a really important step is understanding how many rewards and then having a good business model around that, because I think that's one of the mistakes that a lot of Kickstarters make is they don't limit the number of rewards. And whether you're making a physical product or even a movie, that can be really damaging to your long-term goals. Like on a movie, if you sell too many DVDs, a lot of distribution companies are not interested in you anymore. And from a hardware standpoint, if you sell too many of something, it needs revision or whatever else, you could be really quickly underwater without ever having a chance to launch. So setting a realistic goal for your rewards and making sure you don't go over that or under that is really.
What are some examples of the different rewards that you guys have offered? Justin?
Well, okay, first of all, value. Make sure that your rewards provide a lot of value. You don't want to give a mug away for $1,000. But gosh, under $50, you want to stay as much digital as possible, even under $100. So soundtrack, ebook, movie, all those things, up to I think $70 or something like that, or maybe it's up to $50 on this project. It's all digital, so it doesn't cost us a thing. From there, when you start shipping things, if it's a movie, stuff from the set, a chance to talk to the filmmakers on Skype or live in person, director's chair credits, associate producer credit, IMDb credit, a chance to walk on the film. In essence, you're pre-selling your product, but you also have a lot of ancillary stuff to give away, including your time. And time is free.
Yeah, I would say on the hardware side, and tell me if you agree with this or not. We had a lot of incentives. T-shirts, water bottles are great for cyclists, and I expected those to be, a good number of products. We sold 7 T-shirts. No one cared about our shirts, but we sold over 600 helmets.
Yeah.
And for us, it really validated people care about our product, not so much just about pitching in some money to see us make it. So for us, the ancillary projects or products ended up being kind of an oversight. People really didn't care about it; they just wanted the real thing.
I think
It's pre-sale for hardware.
Yeah.
I think that's right. People really, I think most people who pledge for hardware projects on Kickstarter really think they're ordering something like they would be on Amazon, and that's the mindset that they're in, and that's okay. It's just, I think going into the project, you kind of have to know that that's what they're going for, and that's what you gotta give them. So really focusing on the hard goods and pre-selling it that way. One thing that I went in with a product that was my early bird was like $9, so and that was with free shipping. So very quickly I realized I had to bump up that price in order to make any money, and especially since it was free international shipping. that was the early bird, and it's a very light product to ship. So, but I realized, hey, you know, this could be an accessory that people want to change the color. They want to have different colors so they can, you know, it's something for the iPads and the smart cover. And maybe they want different colors so they can dress up their iPad in different colors on different days. So I started selling multiples, and it worked much better than I thought. People actually started buying multiples, not, you know, sometimes to have multiple colors themselves or to give to friends, friends and family stuff, companies who bought for their employees, distributors who started ordering. And so now I think the average order price went up from like $10 to, I think I'm at like $20. So I managed to double the order size.
It seems like too for like movies and games, people buying ongoing like behind the scenes experience. It might not be the same for it might not be the same for hardware. For movies, people are used to like Peter Jackson's behind the scenes, you know, documentaries that happen once a week, once a month. So people are buying that as well. And so having something that's really personalized for movies and TV shows is really important, we felt. And also, like, you can make new tiers as you go along. For some reason, we started selling hats, like stupid red and blue hats, and they sold out like instantly because they were signed. You know. And so making it personalized was something that's really important for that. But sell hats.
One other point is all of the above. So as you go down your rewards, you can write plus all of the above. So, you know, if there's a hat for $10, but for $500 they get something else, but they don't get the hat, they're going to want the hat. So make sure you say all of the above as long as you can afford it.
Lesson learned, they want the damn hat.
And there's certain items that you don't want to be included. Make sure you put a little note that says this item does not come with everything below.
And realize that when you actually type in, when you're entering in all the information to your Kickstarter thing before you hit go, it gives you a wide space to type everything into. And you can format it and add in all the symbols you want. But when you hit preview, it jams it all into a small box, and it completely deletes all the symbols you put in.
Or all the formatting.
So for ours, I had done a bullet point for all the different, you get this. It turned the bullet points into plus symbols. So people saw T1 helmet plus Torch's first helmet, and they're like, so, am I getting 2 helmets for this? And I must have sent 50 to 100 emails like, you know, be realistic, for $80 you're getting 1 helmet. It was a snafu with programming, like, you know, it's beyond our control. So definitely send the preview out to your friends. And have everybody edit it. Once somebody buys it, once one person pledges, you can't change it. Right. So that was our mistake.
Split test different hats.
They'll send you a preview. I was just foolish enough to think, well, I previewed it before I hit go, so they didn't change the word, you know, so it was good, and that was my mistake.
So what we're getting at then is formatting really matters. Formatting is important. Justin, you actually have an example here tonight, right?
Yeah, we do a lot of work on the visual storytelling, both for Space Command and for our next project, Yafan. We do so much design that goes into just the page, up and down the page. You want to be able to tell your story where nobody has to read. So if you can scroll up and down the page and know what people are doing, it's going to help to tell your story and let them know what it is. Because when I was browsing through, when I first started researching Kickstarter, I would browse through and I would see myself going back on any project that didn't have a lot of pictures.
Going back on any project, what?
I would click the back button on any project that I couldn't scroll up and down and know what it is without reading. So they had to have pictures in order for me to have any interest. And there's our page, our last page that we designed is about 2 table lengths long on 8.5 by 11 paper. And it's right over there.
So afterwards, you guys can check it out and see a good example.
My experience is actually the opposite of both of those stories, where our product was very expensive and there was only 100 of them. So people bought into the ancillary projects, especially the t-shirts, a lot. We sold a lot of t-shirts because people either couldn't afford the product or couldn't get in on it. So we sold a lot. And then we sold a lot of products to people that never watched our video. So for us, the writing was really important. And And when I write, basically the longer the blog or the longer the update, the happier everybody is with it. So yeah, I've done these like crazy long blogs because everybody's really supportive afterwards.
So I think this gets down to basic marketing and knowing your audience.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because as you can see, I mean, these are all successful campaigns, but they've all taken a vastly different approach based on who your audience is. Let's go through one by one and kind of talk about some of the things that came out of your campaigns specifically. So like Justin, you were telling us beforehand that PR was everything for you. Publicity just really helped kind of catapult this, get the name out there. To talk through kind of what you did.
Yeah, I mean, after you've designed the most kick-ass page you can, then it's like, how do you get people to see your page? And it's the same thing with any product. You could have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows how to find it and nobody gets there, how are they going to buy it? So, you know, in our genre, it was science fiction, which is like, man, their wallets are wide open just in general. And they're also really easy to target. They all go to, you know, trekmovie.com, slashdot.com. They kind of, if you want to go fishing, you go where the fish are. And with sci-fi, and really with anything with the internet, if you can figure out where your fish are, where your people are, and where they culminate, get featured there, and it's amazing. The analytics speak for themselves and show exactly how much money you get from each website.
So Slashdot and Facebook were both big for you, right?
Facebook was huge. Slashdot brought in about $20,000 directly through their link. Trekmovie.com brought in about $13,000. And like I said, the analytics are great, but know where your fishies are.
What did you do specifically on Facebook?
Well, okay, so we were lucky enough to where we had a tremendous amount of artists on the team, and we were kind of in active pre-production throughout the whole process. So anything new any new artwork, we were able to post it. Any new updates about who they were meeting with, like Mark would go out and meet with the guy who wrote Prometheus, and he would post that in there. So really being relevant in the posts and having an image with each post, as well as being able to turn your current following into a page's following. So Mark Zickery had some odd thousand friends. Doug Drexler had tons of followers and all this stuff. And being able to, them actually marketing it through their Facebook to come to the new Facebook was really important. And it's really a different experience when you already have a following versus when you don't.
We all need to talk about that.
My experience was Twitter was huge for us because it feels like news. And we didn't even touch Facebook. I mean, we had a Facebook page, but we didn't even touch Facebook until we were like a month in. Because Facebook, at least to me, feels like you're trying to build a friendship and have a conversation that takes a long period of time. Whereas Twitter and blogs are like, hit them fast, hit every blog you can, and then the people that want to will find your Facebook page without any trouble.
But you had trouble though. Joe came up against this interesting challenge because Kickstarter themselves were hesitant about this project, and therefore you couldn't find it when you looked for it on Kickstarter. So how did you deal with that?
Right. So we did it essentially.
Right.
So most of these guys will tell you that 20 to 40% of their money came from people discovering it through Kickstarter, and exactly 0% of our money came from people discovering our project through Kickstarter because nobody ever built a project like ours on Kickstarter, and Kickstarter was very nervous about how much tech was involved in our project, and they just buried it. Like nobody found it.
You should get you 3%.
Yeah, nobody found it because of Kickstarter. It was.
Do you know that for a fact? Though? Like, do you know?
They give us statistics.
Analytics.
Yeah, they give you analytics at the end of the day.
But do you know how they hit it, or if they actually hit it? Did they bury your project?
Yeah, well, we had emails back and forth with Kickstarter, with like people high up in Kickstarter.
I got you. Yeah. Okay.
Can you tell us what your project was again?
It's a camera. It's a raw format digital cinema camera. So it does for motion picture what RAW does for still photography. It's a RAW format.
So was it a consumer product or an industry-specific product? It was a vertical product.
We were and are still targeting independent filmmakers and film students. It's basically a competitor for the DSLR.
Okay. So it's a vertical, more vertical than horizontal.
Yeah.
And what was also interesting with Joe's project is that you were able to get covered in, the very specific niche media, and that drove the majority of the funding.
Yeah, they're basically two websites, Philip Balloons and Stu Mashewitz's Pro Lost blog, and they're the Siskel and Ebert of cameras, and all of our money came from those two.
But as a stark contrast, we've got Nathan over here who's making helmets, and you got a review in a cycling publication, correct?
Well, we started out focusing on the bicycle blogs,
the real niche stuff.
any of the monthly magazines, things like that. I've never done a lot of PR before. I've done a lot of my background was automotive design, and I've done some furniture design, so we always had a little idea of how to get your name out there.
And you would expect that you would get them.
Yeah, what happened though is, we sent it out to a lot of the cycling blogs, and we were really surprised because, cyclists are kind of a die-hard group. They support each other really well. We didn't end up in a lot of the blogs, or if we did, not a lot of sales happened through there.
Where did your sales come from?
We ended up on a men's fashion and gear blog called uncrate.com that I sent to our second day, and they didn't actually respond and post it for 2 weeks. But they did, and we pulled almost 10 grand from that site the first day.
The first day.
That they posted us. So in the end, they were our second biggest contributor. And from there, it kind of spiraled. We ended up in PC Magazine, like a bicycle helmet in a computer magazine, We ended up on Tree Hugger. We ended up in, we've got one that's about to drop in Consumer's Digest. And now, it's kind of spread. Each person, each publication sees it in something and spreads it to a new market that hasn't seen it yet. But it takes that first big one to kind of show your validity and spread the word.
But the point there too is you would think that we would get more sales from the niche publications, when really it ended up being more of a men's interest publication. So don't take for granted any publicity that you get because you don't know specifically which one's going to give you the most bang for your buck.
Can I ask you guys, you're talking about support from Kickstarter themselves. How many of you guys actually were named Project of the Week or Project of the Day?
How many of you were featured?
Yeah, featured on by Kickstarter themselves.
Raise your hands.
Yeah.
Who got featured?
I got featured, but it was I guess it's algorithmic. It must be a number of pledges or something, so it brings you up to on the first page, there's
What's popular.
Yeah, what's popular, I think it's called. So I was cycled in that, and you don't always end up on the first page because it's a scrolling thing, so I think the project must have been on there for 3 or 4 weeks, actually.
Wow.
So that does, I think that was the top for.
And I have seen some statistics that if you are featured on Kickstarter, then the likelihood of you succeeding is 89% or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
We'll get into some more questions closer to the end. Let's keep it. Zach, let's jump back into you. So clearly we've got an issue here because you're going after the kids. You've got an interesting name while going after the animated series. How did you work around that in terms of getting funding?
We were lucky and unlucky in that we have 1 million subscribers on YouTube through our distributor, which is Wando Media. You Happy Tree Friends, if you guys have seen that. So we had 1 million eyeballs every time we wanted to release a video. So every 2 weeks we have a new episode of the show. After the episode was over, we push everybody over to Kickstarter. And you can see actual visual bumps on our pledges, any of those videos going out. And obviously they're kids, so we had to attack a little bit older vlogs for animation or for cartoons. We hit Facebook very heavily because we have 100,000 subscribers. We're lucky to have that many people to follow us. We also went after basically just individuals in animation who have presence on YouTube. There's guys like Ego Raptor and Side Night Happiness. They're comic guys. We also go on Reddit. Reddit was really huge for us. It's just not for everybody.
So Slashout worked for Justin, Reddit worked for Zach.
We had subscribers, but we had 20,000 likes on ours, which just happens to make these double finds, and they got 4 million. We had, I think it was 4 million people saw our Kickstarter video, only 5,000 people actually pledged. You can usually get about 1% of people who see your project who actually put in money. So for us, it was like the number of eyeballs seeing the project.
All right, so that goes back to that whole formula again, too. So the average pledge on Kickstarter is about $50. So if you factor in $50 for each pledge, you might get 1% of people that see your project actually converting. So you can kind of figure out your numbers from there. Slightly. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about timing. Talk a little bit. It takes a little bit of time. First off, timing from the standpoint of how much of a time investment is this to really pull it off? I see you guys like rolling your eyes at me right now. Seriously though, tell them, how much time does it take? What are you facing?
For us, we received 5,000 emails in 48 hours. And actually half of them were emails and half of them were Kickstarter messages. And Kickstarter messages is like trying to go through like your Facebook message. It's just a terrible system. There's no way to organize it. If one person on your team read the message but didn't reply to it, there's no way to tell. Like, it's just really difficult. And we spent, the first 4 days, we spent 22 hours a day dealing with it. And then after that, it was a 12-hour-a-day job for the next month.
It's like having 2 jobs, basically.
Yeah.
You should probably factor in like an additional 10% into your budget for medical expenses. horrible anxiety for the entire process.
Yeah. I suggest making your project as short as you possibly can, because it will be 12 hours a day, every day that your project is up.
Of your data plan on your phone, because you're going to be answering emails everywhere you go. I mean, they come in from all over the world. Well, I do, but they come in from all over the world. So, you know, 4 in the morning, you're sleeping. If you forget to turn the sound off, the emails are coming through because, you know, somebody in the UK is, hey, I've got a question before I buy this. And, but unfortunately, you know, you have to answer them immediately if you want them to buy your product or pre-order.
So timing in terms of responses is do it immediately. And then what about timing in terms of the duration of campaigns? I know you say like make them as quick as possible, but I've heard that there's a sweet spot of about 30 days. Justin, would you agree with that? You consult on this stuff now.
I think it just depends on your project, on the following you have. For instance, on Space Command, we probably could have kept it a pretty short duration because it had such a big following. However, it took, if it was a 6-day campaign, you know, we got some really great press in the 10th day. I think that the more time you have, the more it allows for press. Especially on this new campaign I'm on, where we have less of a following up front. We need the first week just to get some momentum going and start getting the word out in the press. You know, and people can't see your, depending on how much you have already, people can't see your project until the press launch.
Yeah, I had a timing issue, and I ended up choosing a 2 months project, so a 60-day project, which is the maximum you can do. And I was warned, you know, I was told to do this by another Kickstarter project before. The issue that I ran into, and the reason I chose such a long time frame, is that before your project is out, you don't know if it's going to be successful. By the second, third day, you can tell, whether it's going to be successful or not. So, and the issue is, a lot of the press for product projects, a lot of the press wants to see the product. And you can't make the product before you start your Kickstarter project, right? Because you don't have Kickstarter. That's why. But once you know where it's going, you can kind of bet your money on it. That okay, third day, I've fully funded, it should go all right. So I can start investing into making samples. But making samples, that means you need to do for a product project, depending on the complexity of it, you have to make to order a tool. Which can take weeks to make. And so my point is, before you get your sample, it could be a month. And before you get to the press, it could be a month and a week. So if you haven't allowed for that in your time frame on Kickstarter, you're not going to hit the press before your project is over. So that was the. Yeah. It's not relevant for every project.
Right. What about timing in terms of distribution, Justin?
Yeah. One of the questions, especially in film, if you have a distributor who's interested, or long story short, it gives you estimated delivery dates. And if you're offering a DVD a year after the finish of production, what happens if you get theatrical distribution? Then there's DVDs on the market while it's in theaters. Spoilers are out there. The other thing is that distributors are very kind of touchy people. So, you know, if you sell too many of your DVD, you might be screwing yourself, you might not. If you put a release date on there that your backers are expecting it, and the distributors say, hey, that's not the right date for us, that could cause a problem. So on this next campaign, we decided to make a little note that says, estimated delivery date, December 2013, or when commercially available. And that'll cover your assets. Yeah.
What about timing in terms of investors on Kickstarter themselves? Who wants to tackle that? You know, like you said, you'll know within the first 3 days or so how things are going, but how does the investment wave look? You know, when do you get those buckets? Because we talk about this scary lag that happens in the middle. We talk about the beginning and then the end having these big spurts. Why does that happen?
Well, for the beginning and the end, it's easy. In the beginning, you get featured because you're on the new project page, and you get a bunch of orders from that. Also, you know, that's press likes news, so you're going to be featured more easily early on, assuming they don't need the product to actually feature you. At the end, I'm actually at the end right now. There's 4 days left or 3 days left on the project right now. So I'm guessing that's because a lot of people put remind me, you know, there's a remind me button. So a lot of people see it and they're like, I'm not pledging just yet, but I'll put a reminder.
There's also a closing soon page.
Right, and there's a closing
like
soon, but I don't think that affects much till like within 24 hours. I think it's really when it starts ramping up on that.
So what about the people themselves? So, you know, you've got the people that jump in right at the beginning. Are they people that you've cultivated ahead of time? You know, are they just early adopters? And then why do you have wave of people at the end? Are they afraid of the project not necessarily succeeding? I mean, what are the politics of that?
Yeah, I think that the early adopters that come in very quickly are most people's core group that you're going after. And those are the people that you hit with all of your blogs and all that kind of thing. And then the secondary tier of people are the more latecomers and
Laggards and marketing schemes.
yeah, Kickstarter will associate anybody that's pledged to the project, even if it's paid off. So a lot of people don't pledge to a Kickstarter project unless they know it's going to succeed. So they'll see it and they'll be like, oh, $60,000, that sounds like a lot of money to raise. I'll hit remind me, and if it crosses that barrier before its time is up, then maybe I'll pledge.
And about that, I actually intentionally chose a lower goal. I knew I needed more than 10K to do the project, but I chose 10K because I knew I would cross that sooner than later, and then that would get more people on board.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
I think the other thing, and this goes to what Joe was saying, is, you know, if somebody hits the remind me though, they might discover a project they like better in that week or that month or the 30 to 60 days, whatever it is. And then if they invest in that one, they'll be like, oh, that's kind of my budget, so scrap these guys.
Yeah, I am now of the opinion that you should keep it as short as humanly possible because you know, you want that ramp to be connected.
Yeah.
There's urgency.
Yeah.
They want to see you succeed. They have to act.
The early adopters and the laggers to like only be one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anyone had experience with getting additional investors after the close of the?
Or even
has it been
during,
attractive to
yeah.
investors afterwards?
Yeah, I had somebody actually. He bought a retail pack. We were doing, you know, an option for bike stores, which was a 10-pack of helmets.
Just remind me again, which product were you on?
We were the bike helmet with the integrated
bike.
lights. And so, you know, he purchased it and sent me an email through Kickstarter. And he put in the subject headline, it said, "From Kickstarter to Kickstarted." And then it was a very short email, said, "I'm really interested in your project. I'd love to talk with you more about it. Please give me a call." And so I called him. We spoke a little bit, and from there, we entered into negotiations, and we ended up closing an equity investment deal just recently. And so it's allowed us to kind of grow and move our second product up a little ahead of time.
So it was significant enough to justify expanding beyond your...
It was, yeah.
Okay. How much did you raise initially?
We raised $68,000 in Kickstarter.
From Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you must have raised even more perhaps than that.
Quite a lot more.
Okay.
No, in my case, I was going to say there's a lot of distributors that came through Kickstarter and said, either I'm grabbing one of those packages, distributor package that you have, and I had some up to $6,000 for 1,000 units or something like that. But some said, look, I don't want to buy on Kickstarter because I want to see the finished product first, but I really want to buy a massive order, for if I can have exclusivity in Taiwan or in some country. And from all over the world, from Europe, from Asia, from South America, distributors basically came up and found the product on Kickstarter and said, I want to carry the product. Yeah. So for me, I mean, this is really going to, Kickstarter ends in 3-4 days, but after that there's a whole distribution thing. It's going to become a business. So that's,
there's a whole part.
Can I ask a question here? Given what everybody's talking about, can anybody talk to the profile of the people who are actually putting money into this? I mean, obviously not the people who go to the UK market.
Well, they're very different.
We expect from across the board. Some people are friends, some people are complete strangers.
And I think we've understand to let that break down.
It really depends on the training.
Test.
There's a lot of people that were cameras like these in the 60s, up to today.
Test.
There's very little.
Well, I think that's kind of what everybody tries to figure out before launch, and that's what we go for. And then you use the analytics to come back. Am I hitting right, or does it
For us, I think there would be any way to adjust. Like you just hit your target or just
Let's open it up for more questions. That's the time.
I have a question for the guys as it follows. If you thought about doing the way we Kickstarter, if that was something like a quirky where that way, after the product is vetted by the community, self-distribution is pretty much channel, and you're done, if you will. Then you don't have to worry about, I got a distributor now, I got to worry about exclusive rights here or there. Kind of worry about that.
I don't know. I can't speak for him, but is this better at all? It's on.
For me, quality is it's interesting. My background is industrial design, and I believe actually yours is as well. For me, not really like hiring somebody to do my job, right? They do exactly what I do for the people that can't do what I do. So really, essentially do what I know how to do and get a paycheck from me. Second thing is we're working the public full time. So I don't want the public to roll on and then take a Kickstarter and have the public roll on the second time. One on is enough. So I would say it's either or. I really recommend both.
No, I think both of them do like sort of make a decision.
Oh, yeah. I got to look at the business model, and I actually spoke with a guy that started quickly. Because at one point, actually, he was looking at possibly where work in them. And he just seemed, well, they give him the word. fails, what happens?
I would have loved to have some resources. If you're the very fine manufacturers, what are the best manufacturers for that kind of product? How to find people to work with to help design that product for the remodeling and things like that. All kinds of distribution, how does that work? Or is it in the US and Europe? There's no resources like that. So the best resource right now is to go find other successful Kickstarter projects and email or message the owners directly, and sometimes they can respond and share their knowledge, but it was kind of that off. It'd be nice to get that more of a library resource.
I think Nathan would like a WYSIWYG editor that has bullet points.
Yes.
This could be a really long
diatribe
from me, but I'll keep it short. Kickstarter basically takes the place of the bank, the VC, the incubator, like so many parts of a normal business before that, but they don't do any of those things. They don't actually follow up on anything. They don't actually help you with any of the stuff that like an incubator program would help you with. So, yeah, I mean, there should be, just like when you go to a bank for a loan, Kickstarter should be like, hey, do you actually know what you're doing? Can you actually have a manufacturer? Can you, anything to
limit the amount of product, limit the amount of work.
to make sure that your project is going to succeed in the best way possible, because it's in their best interest too. But they have this very hands-off approach because they don't want to take responsibility for what fails and what doesn't. And I think in the long run it's going to be really detrimental to Kickstarter. But yeah, they should have an intentional network of communication before your project launches and after your project succeeds to ensure that everybody involved has a good experience, but they completely neglect those areas. If anybody wants to start a business where they can give their seal of approval on recommended Kickstarter projects, and then again follow up. There's something now called Crowdfunding, which is trying to do something like that. But these are really naked areas in the Kickstarter community.
Well, I wanted to provide, solutions to some of the issues that Kickstarter has. One of the problems for me is the limited amount of things that you can do on your page. I'm used to designing websites that are interactive and tell stories and whatnot. And in this case, you're really limited to, that certain area. And how do you use that as best as you can? And it comes down to you're stuck inside of the box, but think outside of the box while you're inside the box. And we figured out how to use the white backgrounds of the page to make it look more like a website. Take it to the next level. So yes, just like any other platform, you're stuck with what they have to offer. But figure out how you can use it to the best of its ability.
I'll yell over the song. One thing that you gotta keep in mind is that you can only choose one tier when you're purchasing your items. So the base card is a movie, above that was a movie and soundtrack, and so on. Unfortunately, Kickstarter's not a la carte. Some people are like, ooh, I want the movie, I want a soundtrack, I want a hat, I want all this stuff, and it adds up in your shopping cart. It doesn't work like that. So if you want all 10 hats in your movie, so you got super greedy, you can buy the $500 tier. If you're really smart about all your tiers, yeah, there's a lot of hats, I don't know why. But I have crazy hats, things like more. So you just have to be really smart about your tiers, because you can't choose all the cart. You have to choose one at a time. That was kind of tricky about the way it was designed.
Hi, being that you guys all got successfully funded, how long did it take after you funded to get your money and how did you get it?
Oh, did everyone hear that?
you have to set up and qualify a bank account before you can launch it. So once all that's done, you have to, it's an Amazon bank account, exactly. And then you link a bank account to that. Once it's done, it's around 2 weeks. And then suddenly it's there.
I think it depends on how many people's credit cards go through and things like that. I have an old Amazon payments account, which is what it went through, and my car money was there 3 days.
If it bounces, sometimes the car's gonna bounce back, and then it takes a couple extra days to clear all those through.
Which you get charged.
Starting with a blank sheet, if you got no existing product in mind, given with your experience with Kickstarter, what sort of product would you think is best suitable for this kind of
Better microphone.
There's a book, one of my 3 blue ocean strategies. Anybody who's not gotten or read Blue Ocean Strategies, this is really good.
Blue Ocean Strategies.
One more time.
Blue Ocean Strategies.
Yeah, no. And it's all about how to structure an offering, market offering. So we compete with the XLRs, which are very feature heavy, but the sound quality is really bad, and the image quality is 10x compressed, so kind of bad. So we did the exact opposite. We offered a camera with no features, but the sound and image quality are really high. So if you look at the value structure, they're exact opposite. And that's what made it work.
So you think niche is better than going consumer oriented? Horizontal is better to go vertical than to know your specific niche.
It depends on the product.
Yeah. I would say I'm waiting to see somebody do how to succeed on Kickstarter. Cool.
Yeah.
On Kickstarter.
So to help answer your question, especially since it's so broad, I mean, on one hand, if you want low overhead, then you go with digital stuff. A movie, once it's made, it's free to send out, soundtracks and so on. On the other hand, if you want to make a big profit, I've seen hardware be a huge opportunity, because if you make $10 million like the Pebble Watch did, it brings their margins up, which means they make more money per product, as well as, they're probably making a $7 million profit on that watch. So, the other,
The video presentation in terms of like using multimedia.
real quick, just to add to what I was going to say, it's the audience that really is what it's all about. So even more so than what kind of product do I choose, what audience do I have the most access to? Who can I target it in?